Konbanwa. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to this celebration. Since it's a celebration tonight, I thought I'd serve you some cake. Could you please bring up the cake? So the thing about this cake is you're going to have to work for it. Yes, and not all of you are going to get some. And so how you're going to work for it is we're going to be listening to a story by my grandfather talking about how he met my grandmother. And now my grandfather is originally from Hawaii, Japanese American, and he joined the U.S. occupational forces in Japan. And he met my grandmother there, and he's talking about how they met, and it's a very lo-fi quality recording, and he mumbles and he rambles. But you're gonna have to try to pick out certain words that he says, or words that you imagine that he says, and there will be a quiz later. And so like I said, not all of you are gonna get cake, but I hope that it can bring the story home in terms of scarcity. And you can also, there's a lot of forks and napkins, so you can share if you so desire, but you also don't have to. So who's here has, so my grandfather is from, his family, he's from Hawaii, but his family is originally from Okinawa. Who's heard of the Okinawan diet? Yeah, you can raise your hand, right? There was a book written about it about 20 years ago, and they have a very healthy diet with seafood and fresh vegetables. And so when my grandfather's family came to the States, to Hawaii, they were just amazed at all the sugar and saturated fat they could eat. And this was just amazing. And so I remember my grandfather took my mother and I to Hawaii, and we were in the car, and he runs out of the car and he says, "This is where I go eat donuts every morning for breakfast." And he runs out of the car. And my mom turns to me and she says, "This is why your grandfather has diabetes." And because my grandfather has diabetes, for his 85th birthday, my cousin made him, or all of us, a sugar-free, low-sodium cake. Yes, and we all ate it, and because we love him, and we were eating it, and it tastes like how you'd expect. And my grandfather, he takes a bite, and he goes, "This is disgusting." And he pours sugar and soy sauce on his piece of cake. So this cake does not have soy sauce. It does have lots of sugar. It is a red velvet cream cheese cake, so it has gluten, it has dairy, it has red food coloring. So if you don't want to eat any of these things, that's fine. So my grandmother, when she was in hospice, she would only eat cake and sushi. And great life. And however, the doctor said, maybe you shouldn't eat raw fish. And so then she pretty much would only eat cake. And so here she was eating 3 times a day what my grandfather wanted to eat all the time as well, but couldn't. So could, Nick, if you could come up here and help me pass this out. And so what's gonna happen is there's gonna be cake to your aisle, and you can either pass it along, or if you really want a piece of cake, you can just not pass it along. And that's totally fine. And we will play the recording of my grandfather, so really try hard to listen while he's speaking and try to get anything, okay? Thank you. Can you play the tape?
Well, I was taking pictures, and I had to have the picture developed. So my buddy told me oh, there's a Photoshop. There's two nice-looking girls. Yeah, and one is a round face, the other one's skinny. So every time I get off Wednesday afternoon and Saturday afternoon, I'll see her. And then in April of 1947, I had to go to Kagoshima with the first election they had after the war. And we had to be the interpreters and observe and make sure there's no hanky-panky on the election. So I came back. I went to the photo shop. The guy said, "Oh, she quit." I said, "Where does she live?" He said, "I don't know. She lives up that way somewhere, up, you know." And one thing he told me was her house is the only house with a red roof. All the Japanese roof is black tile, but her house was red. That's the house of your picture there. And then I walked over, like, you know, maybe 5 miles, or I don't know, walking. Then I saw the red house. I found that. And there's a gate. I went in the gate and knocked on the door. The U.S. Army captain came out. Yeah, I was a soldier too, so anyone went in and knocked on the door, and he said that, I said, "I'm looking for Takako Kanehira." He said, "There's no girl here, only my wife." I said, "Oh my God." I said, "This is the only house with a red roof." You know, and then I said, "What am I going to do now? I can't find her." Then he said, "There's two guys living in the back, in a shed, you know." And so, go back and ask them. So I went back there, and there was Bunji and Shinsuke.
Yeah, her brothers.
The older brother and the younger brother. And then I asked for Takako. He said, "Oh, she's next door. I'll call her." And so I waited for maybe 20 minutes, I guess, and she still won't come. I said, "Oh, maybe she doesn't want to meet me." You know? So I waiting. Finally she came, she dressed up and came.
Maybe she was nervous.
Wow, she's the type of person got to be perfect before she do anything, you know.
Yeah.
So I said,
Look at that beautiful cake.
Oh, that's good.
Wow, look at that. I will feed Mama. I will feed Mama.
Hold on.
Oh, okay. Okay, we have to lift you up, Grandma.
"Oh yeah, you gotta get up."
Get on up. Get on up.
Oh, it looks so good, this cake. You want to feed her or you want me to feed her?
I can feed her.
Oh.
Well, I was taking pictures, and I had to have the picture developed. So my buddy told me, "Oh, there's a Photoshop. There's two nice-looking girls. Yeah, and one is a round face, the other one's skinny." So every time I get off Wednesday afternoon and Saturday afternoon, I'll see her. And then in April of 1947, I had to go to Kagoshima with the first election they had after the war. And we had to be the interpreters and observe and make sure there's no hanky-panky on the election. So I came back. I went to the photo shop. The guy said, "Oh, she quit." I said, "Where does she live?" He said, "I don't know. She lives up that way somewhere, up, you know." And one thing he told me was her house is the only house with a red roof. All the Japanese roof is black tile, but her house was red. That's the house.
Good evening. So, this is the quiz part. I'll give you a second to think. So, especially if you had any of that cake, it'd be great. There is a mic right there. If you want to say a word that you heard, or something that you thought you heard, or something that you thought you saw or didn't see. You can also yell it, or if you're shy, you can just come up here and whisper it. Or you can do telephone and you can pass it along. Yes, but please come up and tell me anything you saw or heard. Hello, yes.
Mitsu.
Hi, Britt.
So the first thing I remember is that your grandfather worked in a photo shop, or had heard about this photo shop and needed to go to a photo shop, and that there were two girls there, one who had a round face.
That is very observant. Yes, so my grandmother and her sister worked at a photo shop in Japan, and my grandfather would go and develop his photos, and he liked my grandma, the one with the round face. And he went there one day to talk to her, and they said she quit. He said, how can I find her? And can anyone help from there? So, Red Roof, great. So let's have the photo shop, right? The photos. The thin, small face, the round face. And here we have the red roof. It's black here, but you can imagine. Anything else? So yes, so they said it's the only house in Fukuoka with a red roof. And he found it. And he said everybody else's house was made out of paper and black tile. And so basically her house was the only Western style house. Any other things that you heard? Yes?
But the house with the red tile was not where she was.
Exactly. Yeah, she was not there.
She was behind in a, he said, shed.
Yes. Excellent hearing. So yes. So she grew up in this house with a red roof because her father was an international botanist, so she could have a Western style house. And because it was a Western house with brick and a red roof, when the city was bombed, people went to her house for shelter. But also because it was a Western style house, after the war, the US occupied her house. And so that's why she wasn't in it. She was staying in a shed behind it, or they'd stay with the neighbors. Eventually, they went out to the countryside and stayed in a place with no running water where she lived. But the red roof is the house that she grew up in. Anything else that people heard? Yes?
It was April 1947, and he was there to be an interpreter for the first elections after the war.
Very good, yes. Very good, yes. So he was Japanese American. He spoke Japanese and English, and so yes, he was able to be an interpreter for these elections. So there was no hanky panky, is what he said. Anything else? Yes. With the black shirt and the little white.
He traveled 5 miles to find her.
Oh wow, yes. 5 miles. I think there's like a song, but it's a lot more miles. That's very similar.
Fukuoka was
Great. Kagoshima. Yes. Anything else? Yes, with the red shirt.
He had to wait a while to meet her because she was a perfectionist and she was getting red.
Yes, she was perfectionist. She was a little bit vain. Yes. And how was the cake? I try to save a little bit for myself later, but is all right? It was good, okay. I think if you didn't get any, there's going to be some other things for you to have, so it's not quite true scarcity, but. Anything else? Her brothers, yes. So her brothers answered the door, and I think it was quite, right, I think it was surprising for him, because here he was, a U.S. soldier, going to meet this woman, and at that time, U.S. soldiers were not allowed to date Japanese women. And he went to the house, and there was his boss, basically, the U.S. captain. And so he was like, quite taken back. But he still went and talked to her, and her brothers came out. Yes. You can see here, yeah, so here the Photoshop is, and then yeah, we saw the girls, and then the red roof, and then here we are, right here in this theater with these branches, and some of us have eaten cake and others of us have not. Some of us have heard the recording, others did not. Anything else?
He was motivated.
Yes, he was very motivated. He was very, yes, he was very motivated. Wonderful. Anything else? Last call? Yes? In the blue.
At the end, someone had to help her up to eat the cake.
Yes. So that was her eating one of her 3 meals a day. So here we are, yes. Him meeting her eating this cake, you eating this cake. Hopefully. And then here we are. She had a house with a red roof, red, red. She had